Africa's vast landmass means little if nearly 80% of its trade is still conducted in foreign currencies. The reality is stark. Without financial independence, political sovereignty remains incomplete. Imagine instead a single African currency, one that cuts transaction costs, opens vast continental markets, and lays the foundation for true economic freedom. This vision is not new. It echoes the legacy of the late Muammar Gaddafi. He once dreamed of a gold-backed African dinar, a currency that would challenge the dominance of the dollar. His assassination, many reports suggest, was not only about internal politics, but also about the threat he posed to global financial supremacy. Interpretations may vary, but one fact remains. His supporters believe his dream of African financial liberation is far from dead. Sovereignty, however, is not only an economic question. It is political. A common currency would transform Africa into a negotiating force of 4 billion people, no longer 54 fragile states pleading separately for favorable trade terms, but a united front, impossible to ignore. Today, the Sahel Alliance, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, is showing that sovereignty is not just a slogan. Their bold rejection of neo-colonial pressures is proof that some African nations are willing to sacrifice everything in pursuit of freedom. Their stand has ignited a spark across the continent. One Africa, one currency, one destiny. These words, repeated time and again, are more than rhetoric. They are a rallying cry, a dream that remains uncertain in its timeline, but powerful in its pull on the African imagination. Now, let us turn to a story of diplomacy, where progress is written not in slogans, but in signed agreements. South Africa and Ghana stand as an example. Since formal diplomatic ties were established, the two nations have entered into more than 24 agreements and memoranda of understanding. These span vital sectors: trade, investment protection, double taxation, defense, transport, agriculture, information and communication technology, arts and culture, and most recently, a visa waiver for ordinary passport holders. In 2019, this partnership reached a new height with the creation of the Binational Commission, the BNC, at the presidential level. This elevated structure was designed to ensure accountability, follow-through, and deeper cooperation between the two countries. The true value of these agreements lies not just in the ink on paper, but in their execution. When implemented effectively, they pave the way for economic integration, for technological exchange, for cultural bonds, and for genuine people-to-people connectivity. Africa's political leaders continue to insist, liberation is not complete without strong intra-African solidarity. That is why they call for diplomacy that is not symbolic, but action-driven, ensuring that agreements meet the real needs of citizens, advancing Pan-African unity, and guarding against external manipulation of continental partnerships. And, finally, Ghana's foreign policy has drawn attention for a bold step. Accra has voiced its support for Morocco's autonomy plan in Western Sahara over the separatist agenda. The move has sparked debate, yet its defenders argue that Africa must never be divided for the convenience of outsiders. The message echoing across the continent is unmistakable. The long era of Africa being carved apart to serve foreign agendas is coming to an end. A new chapter is opening, one defined by stability, integration, and the reclaiming of sovereignty. Once again, Ghana positions itself at the heart of Pan-African leadership, championing these priorities with renewed determination. At the same time, another powerful vision is unfolding. In November 2013, Morocco unveiled the Atlantic Initiative, a bold plan designed to transform the Sahel and connect it directly to the ocean. This initiative is far more than a blueprint on paper. It seeks to bind the landlocked nations of the Sahel to the Atlantic through an ambitious network of ports, highways, and railway lines. Its goal is nothing less than a new lifeline of trade and growth, stretching across Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Chad. But trade is only part of the story. At its core, this initiative also aims to strengthen energy security, expand cooperation, and create the foundation for lasting prosperity. Analysts say the vision is clear: unlock the full potential of the Sahel by granting it direct access to the Atlantic, and in doing so, accelerate true African integration. Yet the call for integration does not stop there. Experts warn that the continent must strengthen both its northern and southern trade routes if it is to break through old barriers. As African leaders boldly declare, "The days of Africa dancing to someone else's drum are over. From now on, we will set the rhythm ourselves." And in South Africa, another vision is taking shape, this time political. The MK Party has stepped forward with what it calls the People's Mandate, a manifesto built on 8 unshakable pillars. The first pillar is reclaiming dignity, a call to restore pride and self-respect not only for South Africans, but for Africans across the continent. The second is reclaiming land and mineral resources, a direct challenge to long-standing struggles over land ownership and natural wealth, with proposals for redistribution and greater national control. The third, reclaiming people's power, emphasizes returning decision-making to citizens, placing the people at the heart of governance. The fourth, reclaiming the economy, aims to dismantle inequality and promote inclusive growth, ensuring that prosperity is not limited to a few. The fifth pillar is building human capital and technological capabilities. Education, they argue, is the cornerstone of any self-respecting nation. Alongside it comes investment in skills and cutting-edge technology, equipping Africa to compete on the global stage. The sixth, reclaiming spaces, focuses on transforming cities, expanding infrastructure, and delivering basic services to those long neglected. The seventh, reclaiming safety and security, promises to strengthen law and order, ensuring that citizens live in peace without fear. And the eighth pillar is reclaiming sovereignty and position in Africa and the world, a vision that seeks to cement South Africa's influence on the continent and amplify its voice across the globe. Together, these pillars form what the MK Party describes as the uncompromising continuation of the liberation struggle, a struggle that does not end with the fall of apartheid, but marches onward against economic captivity, against poverty and unemployment, and against the grip of neo-colonial domination. By contrast, the current government of national unity is, in the MK Party's words, compromised. They claim to be the ones carrying forward the torch of the forebears, those who dreamed of full freedom, dignity, and prosperity for every South African. And so the call goes out, not only to politicians, but to Africa's youth, its intellectuals, its women, its innovators. They are told that the next great battle of liberation is not behind them. It is unfolding right now. That battle is de-dollarization, not simply an economic discussion, but, in their words, the new front line of Africa's liberation. It is the continuation of the struggles once led by giants: Patrice Lumumba, Kwame Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara, and Muammar Gaddafi. Yet, as analysts remind us, presidents and governments cannot complete this mission alone. Universities like the University of South Africa, along with every African campus, are being urged to become workshops of sovereignty, training grounds for a new generation that will not only inherit Africa's struggles, but seize its future. Across the African continent, a rising call is echoing, a call that demands a future no longer defined by dependency, but by self-determination and strength. In a recent address, the message carried both urgency and hope. Africa must chart its own destiny. Economists, it was declared, must step forward to design financial systems built for Africa, not borrowed from others. Engineers are called upon to shape not only the bridges and roads of tomorrow, but also the very foundations of African governance and justice. Lawyers are urged to carve out institutions rooted in fairness, independence, and sovereignty. And leaders are reminded that their greatest responsibility is to nurture unity across this vast and diverse continent. The reminder carried a heavy weight. The West, history tells us, once built its power by chaining Africa. Today, a new generation insists those chains must be broken, and that Africa must forge its own power with its own hands. The rallying cry is clear. Move from the classroom into the policy room, from the laboratory into the marketplace, from lecture halls into the very halls of power. This vision is not about producing workers for the benefit of foreign corporations. It is about producing inventors, thinkers, builders, creators of systems that will shape Africa's tomorrow. The message thundered with conviction. Africa is not a beggar at the world's table. Africa is the builder of a new table. As these words rang out, the audience responded with applause, affirming the urgency of this vision. And then came the conclusion, powerful and uncompromising. The strength of Africa lies in its unity. The time to act is no longer in some distant tomorrow. The time is now. The dream is bold but unmistakable. An Africa united, sovereign and prosperous. An Africa free from the weight of chains, standing tall on the world stage. And so the closing words echoed with force. Long live Pan-African unity. Long live African sovereignty. Long live the dream of a free, united, and thriving Africa.